Beach, check. Suntan lotion, check. Check. Nadex, check. Trade from anywhere, trade Nadex. Open an account at Nadex today.
All right, welcome everybody. My name is Jason. Thanks for joining us. Going to look at some metrics, forecast, data for Bitcoin. So I'm going to look at some trading opportunities. Going to do some analysis, look at some light mathematics. Maybe we can determine where the market's headed from here. It's been an amazing couple of days in crypto. If you love crypto like I do, certainly if you love crypto trading like I do, these last few days have been what it's all about. A lot of us got into crypto trading. It was new, it was exciting. A year or two ago, maybe last year, maybe last winter, you got into crypto. Whenever it was exciting, new, and fresh. You had some high highs, some good runs, and you also had some near-death experiences like we've had over the last few days. And that's what's been cool for me about the last few days. It's been kind of a return to that volatility, that excitement, those big runs like we had through this morning. And again, those near-death experiences like we had Thursday night, Friday, when we touched the perilous $5,800 level, which we'll talk about here in a second. Again, my name's Jason Paff. I'm from thedutchbook.com. We offer innovative quantitative analysis. Really, our bread and butter is crypto, is Bitcoin. We cover a lot of Forex as well. We'll cover energy. We'll cover stock indices. But we love crypto. I love crypto and love looking at opportunities to trade, strategy. And our unique angle is, again, you saw on the site, innovative quantitative analysis. We like to look at data. We like to think with our heads and use our human level insight at the same time. And we put those two things together and we build forecasts for Bitcoin, for crypto, and we trade on it and have a lot of fun. So as I said, let's talk about the last few days. Thursday night, we were on and we talked about a pretty constructive view that we had for Bitcoin. Our forecast said the 5,800 level would hold, although if it were to break, and this still holds true today, if 5,800 breaks, that's a really scary level. Our mathematical models show if 5,800 breaks, it's just going to be a cascading series of new lows. We'll touch 55,000. Our models indicate when we touch 5, we'll touch 4,500 within the same 24 hours, and we'll be looking over at a cliff at 4,000 once we break 4,000. Which we will, in my opinion, if we break 5,800. We really don't have any meaningful support down here till about 3,000, which we last touched back, in the late last summer, early fall period back here. Last time we touched 3,000. You see we have a little bounce here, and we headed up. Next level of support was right here, this 5,800, which that's got to be the level that holds. So we tested it. Got close around 6,000 earlier in June. It held. I said, on Thursday night, there's a way to look at this where, maybe this is a kind of a double bottom scenario, right? Where you touch, not a true double bottom in a technical sense. For a purist out there, any chart purist would kill me for calling a double bottom with a spread there of about $100. But in reality, we've touched this very similar low level twice, tested it, it's held, and we've seen the bounce here that we enjoyed this morning. We'll look at our forecast models and talk about what goes into that here in a second. But we indicated last Thursday night, Friday morning that a bounce off 58. We saw the apex of a run from there to about 66.75. We're at 66.11 now. I looked a few minutes ago. We were at 66.50. We're at about at that apex. The good news, if you're bullish on Bitcoin, is that is still holding. We haven't seen a retracement yet. At some point, we will see a retracement. We know this. Some folks will consolidate positions. One thing you want to keep an eye on is volume, right? This volume were to start to wane around this level here. It's holding pretty steady here at the moving average, which is good. If it spikes, we're in for another leg higher. I don't envision that in the next 48 hours. I think the market's going to need to take a breather here. We could see a significant retracement in the level of about 50% from about 6,600, 6,650 down to about 6,200, 6,300 if volume starts to wane. If we're able to hold our volume, and let's get a little tighter window here. If we're able to hold our volume here, sorry, adjust my scale here, then we should hold these levels, these stair-step levels here as we grind higher. This is a really good pattern to see. Two good spikes. We held on the grind higher. I feel like if we were going to retrace anytime in the next 12 hours to a 50% level, we actually would have done it earlier. If you remember this move we had earlier in June, where we touched right here. Let's look at this level right here and look at what happened before. So we touched, close to the 5,800 level here on a 2-hour chart. And we got here, right? 63.39. And what I said at the time, and what we said at the dutchbook.com at the time was, this is an exhaustive market. There was kind of a dead cat bounce, if you will, off of 5,800. It only got us to 6,300. Decent move in volume, but not enough to get us over 6,300. And we saw 50% retracement essentially, grind sideways, retrace the rest of the way, and found ourselves right back where we were. It's kind of an exhaustion move, right? Like some folks move into the market off the low, push it higher incrementally. It's just not enough to get over the hump. Kind of a sideways downward grind, a little more grind, and then the bottom falls out. You're right back where you were. Two separate 50% retracements. Found the bottom. Got to move up this morning. You can see right here on a 2-hour, this is where earlier, the bottom would have fallen out in an exhaustion move. But this morning, sorry, calibrating my chart here, we got another leg higher. Then we held through the sideways consolidation move. The market digested what it saw, and we pushed it on up to 6,600. If you're bullish on Bitcoin, this is net positive. I don't think there could be a better scenario coming out of a 58 handle. If it was any steeper, it would be too much too soon. This is about as steep as you want if you want it to hold this level. If you're short, depends on where you got in at, entered your short position. This is in our view, our opinion, this is going to hold for a bit. It'll naturally retrace some, but it's not going to be a steep, sharp move in our opinion. We don't see any indication of that, like we've seen before with Bitcoin. Like I said, it's been an exciting couple of days, and really going back to this earlier move here in June, just to reiterate the point, 5,800 is a near-death level. If we were to breach that and spend any material amount of time below that, as I said earlier, next stop's 5, it's like an elevator going down, then we get to 45, then it's 4, then you're staring over a cliff at 3. I do think you'd have support at 3. I do think that folks would enter the market at that point, but that's about all there is. There's just no bottom underneath it. So we go back to the daily. Let's check our moving averages. We're well below those. Both still pointed down. What I'd say here is just kind of as we start to look forward, we have positive indications, but we've got a long way to go. The 200 is well under the 50. But here's what's cool. And again, if you love trading crypto, You'll love figuring this out with us. And this is simple, but it's just really interesting. This downtrend is one of the steepest you'll ever see trading anything, right? Like, this has been quite a trend to watch form over the last few months, and we've all lived it. You guys have lived it. You've traded it. You know what I mean. It's been steep, and we kind of call it, our Michigan Wolverine helmet here, as different, tops kind of converge on the same kind of last gasp here that we had in May. It's easy to forget in May we got up to 9,800, right? And May was not that long ago. But you can see that rounded arc there. We just lost it. But really every other high has just collapsed into this trend line. And it's been a steep trip down. Remarkably, we have followed this trend line with extraordinary discipline. And again, this trend line right here, where these points converge, this goes back to the 1st of May. Right, we got up to 9,800, the apex of this move right here. And then it's just been a slide down. And this angle is held with remarkable consistency. And what's been remarkable for me, and for those of us at dutchbook.com, and many of you as watchful observers of crypto markets, has just been, with such an extraordinarily volatile instrument, the discipline that Bitcoin has channeled down against this trend line. And we've done very well and been very profitable trading crypto, and I say that with all humility. And folks will be skeptical of that at times. Other folks will think that's cool and want to know how. When you look at a trend line like this over the course of months, right, and you understand the discipline with which it's proceeding in that channel, mathematically, and we'll get into some of our mathematics here in a second. That's a easily replicatable pattern. But then we have this, right? Like, and let me shorten up my chart here. Sorry about that. Still calibrating my scale here. Going the wrong way. Let's take it back to the daily and zoom out. With all of this trend line going down, that goes back into 2017. We've breached it, and we've popped above it. And what's really interesting is, in a classic sense, for those of you again who are classically, trained charting traders, if there's any of those out there, the corners of these triangles are normally really volatile. And at least that's what you'll learn. That's what you're taught, and that's where the market decides. It coils and it coils and it coils and it coils and it builds and builds and builds for a move, and then it decides which way it's going to go. And usually, an early indication of the break sends the market in a new direction. And it's actually happened with digital currency and Bitcoin here. So we've now broken this trend line. Part of the downside is that is a guy like me has to decide now. He has to draw a new pattern and decide what that's going to be, because my Michigan Wolverine helmet here is slowly becoming less relevant. But it's really cool to see. We've broken this trend line. We've started to come out of the triangle. We've bounced off 5,800. We've hit 66.12 is what I've got right now. And it's going to be a really exciting week to see where we go from here. We have a couple of points of view on where we go from here, and then we'll look at some forecasts, talk about some news and some other things that may influence this. One, we believe the lack of volatility that the Bitcoin market has seen has been a significant part of the problem. A lot of traders got into Bitcoin because of the volatility. As that has ebbed, folks have left the market. As that returns, the instant that returns in any meaningful way, and we do still have some ground to cover. We've got to cross over the 200-day moving average, for instance, and get the 50 moving in the right direction. Once we start to get that type of momentum, folks will start to re-enter the market, recapitalize, new inflows, and that momentum will return. we believe, and we are constructive and biased in a bullish direction on Bitcoin, and we'll look at our 2018 view. That'll happen more quickly this time. You already have an install base of wallets. Those wallets have been latent since January, February when the market crashed. Once the market is back on an upswing, those wallets are easier to flip on this time. Folks have some fluency in the market. Some more active traders who are maybe in altcoins right now because they're more volatile will return to Bitcoin. Number one. Number two, we do see as the market begins to gain additional traction and clears itself of some regulatory issues, etc., we see more institutional inflows coming into the market. Now, the challenge on institutional inflows, talking about a Goldman Sachs, for instance, opening a trading desk, that could also reduce volatility. However, that improves and increases demand and will fundamentally move the market. A market like Bitcoin is so determined by supply and demand. More demand from an institutional user base, absolutely bullish for price. Things like Facebook, right? Recently, just this week, announced the ban on crypto ads that they never really had enforced. Most of you, I'm sure, know that. They've moved in a different direction, and they're reversing that. There's still some caveats for ICOs, etc., which actually is also bullish for Bitcoin. The less competition from altcoins that Bitcoin has, more bullish for price for Bitcoin, that is. As some of those things happen over time, that to us is fundamentally constructive, fundamentally bullish for Bitcoin. But again, in a very exciting way, we've got a long way to go. We're not even to the 200-day, much less the 50-day moving average yet. But a sharp 10% move this morning starts to bring some momentum into the market. We've survived off the 5,800 handle yet again. And we've seen a return of the type of volatility that most of us got into trading Bitcoin in the first place to trade. So hope that's as exciting for you as it is for me. Again, for someone that loves crypto like myself, I just love the action, the activity, and the spirit of it. So let's look a little bit here at what we do. Again, my name's Jason. I'll show you where you can find us at thedutchbook.com. You can come here, subscribe to our free newsletter. Again, extensive coverage of crypto, Bitcoin. Just provide a name and an email address. Hook up with us, hook up with me on Twitter, and just stay in touch. And we will send you free and cool analysis of Bitcoin and talk to you about Bitcoin prices and our future outlook. So there's a chart we just looked at. So let's talk a little bit about what we do and what we see for this week. So this is just a graph, a really simple graph. Different kind of chart than maybe we are used to looking at all day. But this is the results of what we do is we build a large computer simulation mathematical model that takes in just mountains of data about the Bitcoin and crypto markets, models, simulates thousands and thousands and thousands of time, all the different scenarios, all the various things that could happen in that market. And then what we asked that model to do that we built is tell us what all of those things lead to. And we have it set on a weekly basis. And we'll talk about why we go weekly here in a second. And we also have it set to the maximum value for that week. And we'll talk about why we do that here in a second. But that's our objective. We will ingest every piece of data. If you've ever heard the term big data, we'll ingest all of the data we can into a mathematical computer simulation oriented model, simulate the market thousands of times on a rolling 7-day period to get a maximum value for the next 7 days. So last week, last Thursday night, we were hovering around 5,800 and we had a max value in the neighborhood of 65, 6,600 for the next 7-day period. Again, you see where we are. This has been refreshed since over the weekend, and it's actually coming up with similar values. So each dot is a point forecast. We also use this to look at risk. If you're a trader it's not just important for you to know where you think the market might be, but if you've heard of, a long tail or a black swan phenomenon, something just out of the blue happening, a model like this also helps us understand, wild skew to either side of the market, where the market could go, right? Where's our risk? So as we look at this week, and again, we did this over the weekend for this week. This was actually very similar to the results we received mid last week that we talked about Thursday night. Our model sees 6,600 being the midpoint. Actually, it was 6,675 was the break point on a 60/40, but 6,600 is the midpoint. And you can see the mound or the apex there of all the simulations. Most of the simulations are coalescing around that 6,600 midpoint. However, as a trader, you got to know, where's my risk? 40% chance the max value actually pushes beyond 6,600. So what we're saying here is we ran 100,000 simulations, which is an accurate number. We simulated the Bitcoin market for this week 100,000 times. 40,000 times it hit 6675 or above. So the midpoint is 6600. We're there now. Again, 6675 was actually the point forecast. But we still have opportunity. We still have upside. Clearly, we've already crossed through that 6600 number, which was also a 40% chance to the downside. But this market could go higher, or this could be the apex for the week, right? And again, as we talked about earlier, as we looked at the chart, really the telltale sign for us as to which way that's breaking will be volume. If volume slows down, you're probably at the max we'll see this week. We'll probably retrace to a 6,300 number, settle there as we head into the weekend. If volume continues and we continue to see inflows, we continue to see improving transaction levels, we'll continue to see improving Google search levels. We'll look at our Google search traffic and index and talk to you about how we track that. We continue to see that momentum. I don't know how much gas is left in the tank above 66.75, but we could incrementally work our way there, but we'll at least hold the 6,600 level that we're seeing right now. This is just a different look, and again, don't let a different type of chart scare you. I promise this will translate very cleanly to the type of candlestick chart we're normally used to looking at. If you're an options trader, and we'll look at, for instance, Nadex options here in a second, and you're interested in a particular level or a strike price in the options world, or you just want to know as a trader, if I'm setting targets and risk and reward, where's my risk, where's my reward, what are the probabilities of different values? This is a cumulative distribution. So again, it's the same simulations we had earlier. And again, this is what we do at thedutchbook.com, and we provide for free to traders. If you would have gotten our newsletter this morning or last week, we would have said, hey, 50% chance the max value for next week is at 6,600 or below. We're right there right now, right? We are holding that level. We have an 80% chance the value is at 6,800 or below. So what does that tell you? The inverse of that, for those of you who might be bullish, you might be long, you might be wondering, do I sell now? Do I continue to ride this out? Our guidance right now, the math is telling us we have a 20% chance for every 100,000 simulations we run, 20,000 end up 6,800 or above. And then you just have, as a trader, you need to factor that into your risk reward, your trading goals, what you're looking to get out of the market, how far you may have come, how far you still need to go. But if I'm long right now, and let's say I bought in last Thursday, as we were talking about, we saw an opportunity to pop to 65, 6,600. I need to be comfortable with one of two things: either closing my position now and taking the 10 to 15% move I just got, or holding on for a bit. I really don't know how much higher we could push beyond 6,800. You can even see the model out of 100,000 runs. We probably had 100 that crossed 7,000. And that's just going to be a tough level to breach. Volatility, really quick, critical to understand for a Bitcoin trader. We look at it on a rolling 30-day estimate. The thing to take away here is it's improving, but again, we still have a long way to go. For perspective, if you look at the left side of the chart, the 8th of January, we crossed 8% on a rolling 30 on volatility. Right now, we're still under 4%. The good news if you're long, or the bad news if you're short, is that's 25 basis point or 0.25% up from where we were last week. When we talked last week, we were talking about a level of about 3.5%. So it's improved, but again, it's really got to go 2x for us to see the kind of run that we saw last December and January. One of the really unique things for those of you who might be coming to crypto from Forex, and I came to crypto from Forex a couple of years ago, started trading Bitcoin in 14, 15, but I'm really, trained as a Forex guy. Normally, volatility is a negative, or it's a bearish indicator, right? Volatility spikes as assets decrease in value. As you get to a bottom, the market's in disagreement over where the price should be, and typically that weighs on price. Bitcoin is the exact opposite. Bitcoin needs volatility. It's correlated very well with higher levels of volatility mean higher levels of price. So if you're long Bitcoin, you want to continue to see this volatility. Again, part of that we believe is that's just inflows from new traders who are looking for alpha or return. They see the opportunity in Bitcoin that adds additional volatility, which brings in more traders looking for volatility, and it just becomes that flywheel or that momentum effect, and that's what we got as we hit Thanksgiving and the holidays last year. So the narrative here is going to be, and we'll look at just a couple more slides and get back to the charts and take questions. The metrics, if you're long, are stable and slightly improving. And that's as good as it's going to get right now. It's got to stop getting worse before it's getting better. My takeaway for you tonight, if you're trading Bitcoin and you're long, it stopped getting worse. And that's cool because it's got to stop getting worse before it can start to get better. But it's still got a long way to go. And you can see that the volatility chart is a classic case of that. That is a pretty weak and tepid improvement on the right side there from the 11th of June on, but it's still improvement. All right, this is pretty cool. It's pretty simple. Again, in the newsletter, we go much deeper. You can sign up for the free newsletter at thedutchbook.com. This is our forecast for the end of 2018. Again, I talked about this last Thursday night when we were at 5,800. And I think some folks thought that might have been crazy at the time. And it still could be crazy because we're only at 6,600. Our view is between 10,300 and 11,100. And that's really tied to two critical metrics which correlate with the price of Bitcoin at almost a one-to-one level. Again, I get asked definitely daily, sometimes hourly, how are we able to forecast so precisely the price of Bitcoin? And again, as I said earlier, we've been very successful at doing that. If I know the number of active users on the network, and I know the volume of transactions that are going through the network from those number of users, that correlates very cleanly, and you can see it in the charts, to the price. And you can go out to blockchain.info or whatever your data site du jour is and get that data. I tell folks all the time, if Amazon sent me their real-time revenue, and if Amazon sent me their real-time sales data, and if Amazon sent me their real-time website visitor data, I could probably forecast pretty closely, their quarterly revenue, their weekly revenue, their daily revenue, if they just gave me the data. But they don't, right? If you're trading Amazon, you got to wait till the end of the quarter for somebody to tell you what they want you to know about their stock. With crypto, and one of the reasons why we all love crypto is it's transparent, it's peer-to-peer, and the data's out there for anybody. We mathematize that data and get very close to a forecast that works pretty well. And again, we're wrong often as well, but we're able to pretty closely forecast on a week-to-week basis movement of Bitcoin because we have access to the number of active users on the network, the number of wallets and wallet creation. We follow that very closely. Number of transactions going through the network. As you watch the number of transactions going through the network, And it makes logical sense to all of us. More transactions equals more demand equals a higher price. It's simple supply and demand. So we see, and this has been our 2018 forecast for some time, we've tracked it pretty well, a bottoming in early summer, and we've seen that, right? We're just in the concluding really the first part of the summer, and then a slow roll higher through the end of the year. If there's anything those of us at the dutchbook.com want to communicate is when we talk about getting to a level of 11,000, it's not going to be, there will be sharp moves, don't get me wrong, but it's not going to be the steep move all at once that we saw last year. It's not going to be that, in our opinion, for now, for the foreseeable future, ever again. There's institutional inflows coming in. There's options products, there's derivatives products, there's futures through SIBO. We talked a little bit about that Thursday and the influence that can have on a market. There's just a lot more going on than there was when we saw the extraordinary meteoric melt up last fall. It's going to be a slower roll. It's going to be more incremental, and it's going to be something that is a little different than it was last year. But we're tracking pretty well, again, to our constructive view of north of 10, no higher than 11,000 by the end of 2018, based on, again, how we're modeling transaction volume and active users. Another metric that we look closely at, and again, similar story to volatility, in that it stopped getting worse and it started getting just a little bit better, is Google search data. So this is something we started tracking really back during the run-up. For us, the first step to owning Bitcoin, as all of us know, is to download a wallet. The first thing any of us do, whether it's to make reservations, at a restaurant on a Friday night, or to find the time a movie's playing, is to go on Google and search for it. So we started tracking search data. It correlates pretty well to price, not as clean and as real time as active users, where we can really model on an hourly or daily basis. But over time, Google search and search index, which the price of Bitcoin, the axis is on the left, Google search is on the right. It tracks pretty well. And as you can see there, as we hit the end of June, and I've got that area highlighted, just a slight uptick in searches in blue. The price of Bitcoin there is in the orange, and they've both started to bump up just a little bit. The rolling 4-week average for search is up the last 2 weeks. Price is starting to inch back up, and again, just like with volatility, it stopped getting worse. We feel it's bottomed, and it's going to slowly, incrementally start working its way back up. So that's the type of forecast that we build. Again, everybody on the stream tonight, I'd love for each of you to check us out. Certainly up to you. It's completely free. It's pretty sophisticated mathematical research. We'll bring in some fundamentals. We'll talk about the impact of Facebook reversing their crypto ban. 2 weeks ago we talked a lot about Mt. Gox and not they've slowed and now ended their massive sales, and they're not just liquidating humongous positions. That was a problem through the spring. Anytime we'd get a run, you'd have a distressed sale of millions of dollars of coin. So we'll talk about some of those fundamental news stories and some of those fundamental influences and factors, but we'll also roll all of that through some pretty sophisticated mathematical models, and we'll deliver a forecast. Again, some weeks we're much closer than others, but what I think you'll find is the research, the data, the education is helpful, helps you think about your own trades, your own strategy, your own position in the market, and that can really help make you a better trader. All right. So Just checking back in on the market here, 66.10. Again, you know, that's about, just checking back in on the volume here as well. That's about where we had anticipated being. Again, for those of you who were here Thursday night, you know, we called about a 65, 6600 in our forecast over the weekend. 66.75 was the midpoint, so it's tracking right about where we thought, and we'll continue to monitor that level closely. I mentioned earlier, one of the things we do with our forecast, and if you sign up for our newsletter, what we'll forecast for you is you know, an apex or a high point. We forecast a week at a time. We'll also forecast a month at a time. And one of the reasons we do that is because we love to actively trade Nadex options. And Nadex options work on a weekly or monthly basis. And because it's an option or a derivative, you have a strike that you want to achieve. So for those of you, these are actually spreads, the Bitcoin spreads. So for those of you who are into Nadex, our forecasts are really aligned to thinking about not only a day-to-day or a week-to-week trade if you are a trader, and you know we're on many exchanges as well. But if you'd like to open positions with Nadex spreads, our forecast. We have a lot of folks from Nadex who are subscribers. Again, we're active on Nadex as well. We publish on their market news section. We love what Nadex has done for crypto and for Bitcoin. And so we absolutely will align our forecasts to those products as well. Again, if you're into, you know, day trading, we are too. You know, last Thursday on the stream, we were pretty transparent with our positions, you know, where we were when it was at 5,800, where we were going to close because we saw a bounce, and you know, so we can certainly slice it into finer time horizons as well. All right, just going to check the stream for any questions. If anybody has any questions, certainly love to answer those. We'll talk about a forecast out 2018, 2019. We'll talk about forecasts for tomorrow. We'll talk about forecasts from an hour from now. We have all of them for Bitcoin and crypto. We'll talk to you about our positions, why we've taken those positions. And again, as you guys know, talking with other traders, it's not just, hey, this guy's right or it's wrong. It's just, let's talk about our trades and think through it with each other. And let's just you know, help each other figure it out. Any questions on the stream? All right, Crypto Sep. May or may not be not pronouncing that right. You can certainly have feel free to check out Thursday, Friday's recordings. It'll tell you where we called the market and the trades we were making, and you'll see us there now. I think that's the easiest way to demonstrate any results. We publish a newsletter full of research. We actually sign up for the newsletter. We publish our scorecard. We're completely transparent. We do also work in Forex. Not going to go into great detail there, but you know, we've got outlooks on Tesla, you know, Australian dollar, the yen, and you can see the week-to-week published results that we disclose and are very transparent. But to get those results, you got to sign up for the newsletter. So I invite you to do that. Dots 105, would I go long here, wait to see more stability? It really depends on your time horizon. Long term, I'd have no problem going long here. If you've got 6 months, you know, 3 months, 4 months, whatever the time horizon is, certainly longer than I would say, you know, a month. You'll still see some volatility within the month. But over the long term, we're certainly going to have a slow roll up from here in our view. But, you know, going long, if you're day trading right now, you know, I just don't. I think the market's going to park and consolidate for a bit. That's our view here at 6609.19. You know, it might move up a little tomorrow. It might move down a little tomorrow. That's, you know, there's just some noise after such a sharp move this morning. We think you asked about stability. I think that's the key word in your question, and I love you bringing that piece up. We believe the market's stable. This is our view. You know, I invite anybody to disagree with me, and we've certainly been wrong our fair share number of times. We see the stability in the data. We see the stability in transaction volumes. We see stability in the search data. We see stability in wallet creation. It stopped getting worse. It stopped getting worse for about 2 weeks now, and it's slowly starting to improve. Volatility, we looked at charts earlier, slowly starting to improve. So we see the stability. It's really, for me now, it's about the momentum, right? We need to see the stability translate into escalation, and we have not seen that yet. So if you're going along and you've got a time horizon of, you know, a day, an hour, a day, or a week, I would look at some other options potentially. You could certainly, you know, look at some scalping opportunities if you really wanted to get aggressive and active. But in terms of just a traditional long, you might have to have some patience to get another leg off 6,700. All right. Other questions? Link for the newsletter. It's thedutchbook.com. Again, my name's Jason. You can also connect to our Twitter stream. Sign up for the free newsletter. You know, come read the research, look at the math, check out the data, track our results week to week and day to day, and you know, let's help each other get better. All right, other questions, comments, feedback? What do I think about altcoins going back up? You think we're going to see this rise, keep going for the next few days? You know, something really interesting last week, and we talked about this in the newsletter. Last week we saw a significant divergence between Bitcoin and the altcoins to the upside of Bitcoin. Part of that was because Bitcoin took a steep hit the week before. But one thing that for us it would be helpful to the market is to begin to see some divergence between altcoins and Bitcoins. We love Bitcoin. We trade Bitcoin. That is our primary focus. Don't get me wrong. But it's really hard at times to differentiate, or, you know, if you're a solid altcoin with solid technology, right? You know, you're just dragged around to the better or worse by the lead story with Bitcoin. We feel like over time that does happen as crypto matures as an asset class, and you know, folks like Crypto World News, who are doing a fantastic job of bringing, you know, information and analysis and you know, folks on to talk about different altcoins, different opportunities. Clearly Bitcoin, you know, carries the day, but you know, over time that will improve. In terms of, you know, what do I think about altcoins going back up? Yeah, we think the market's healing more broadly, which is for me good to see. You may be short and have a different opinion, but we think generally across the asset class, the second half of the summer is going to certainly be slightly to moderately better than the first half or the last few months, and we think that cascades to the different altcoins. There's, you know, thousands at this point, so to say every single one will enjoy that same benefit, no, but generally speaking, we see the market has healed or is healing pretty quickly and will begin to move back up across the entire asset class. All right, other questions? Comments? Yeah, in terms of CryptoSep, in terms of results, it's in today's newsletter. I'm happy to send you a copy. So no problem at all. Again, we fully transparent. We talk about the trades that don't work. We talk about the trades that do and why, and that's, for us, it's a love of education, and that's why something so exciting as crypto is cool to us, because it's all still learning. So even though we have, some, we've had some success lately. We talk about the times we don't do well or as well. Someone asked if our newsletter have stop losses and profit targets. Absolutely. Yeah, and even though the volatility, as we've talked about, has been less lately, certainly want to put a plug out there, as I hope you all know. But stop losses and profit targets, we'll keep them pretty tight. Maybe a 5% on a stop. It depends on the conviction of the move, the volatility in the market that day. But we're more disciplined with stops really than we are targets. We'll let the models tell us where to take the target, and we're running the models constantly. And so when those break and give us an indication that we need to exit a position, we do that. But we publish those and we talk about them often. But we'll certainly adjust the targets as we need to. But we're pretty disciplined with stops. Other questions? Comments? Insights? Just looking through the stream here. All right. At 66.12, again, that level continues to hold. I think if you're long, you should sleep pretty good tonight. If you've been up and you're holding your position, market looks on pretty stable ground right here, pretty solid footing. Again, interestingly enough too, we've talked a lot about numbers and data. The news cycles have certainly improved for Bitcoin lately, and we see that as definitely constructive. Goldman Sachs opening a trading desk, Facebook reversing the crypto ban. Great article in the New York Times today, just about institutional money, hedge fund money that has been on the sidelines and is preparing to begin to explore crypto. If you take the institutional money that's out there, family offices, hedge funds, etc., it's a significant amount of money. It's changed entire asset classes before, and there's definitely a narrative. I'm not saying necessarily I subscribe to it, but that crypto will begin or continue to evolve as different levels and classes of money cascade through the space. But stepping back to today, that's all obviously taking place potentially over a longer term time horizon. But we had just a brutal news cycle over winter, spring, early summer. That's even improved, and that to us is important fundamental indicator. The other thing, and we said this at the time, as bad as the news was, it was always remarkable to us how resilient Bitcoin and crypto was at the same time. It took a beating, price took a beating. Don't get me wrong, we're down 50, 60% off the peak. But the news was so bad for so long, it would have killed any other asset. And crypto was resilient. And again, that told us at the time, these levels of support, like 5,800 that we tested and bounced from last Thursday, were going to be pretty resilient. And we've certainly seen that. And that's cool. So question on the broader market. Do we look at the broader market? I've heard other analysts say Bitcoin has preceded the market since December. And I don't know if we're talking about like equities or I assume maybe we're talking about equities. Another question on what do you think about the traditional markets pumping on low interest rates? I could go on forever about the effect on markets of low interest rates, but I don't think that's this stream. The two questions actually in a weird way interrelate. If Zuckus is asking about equity markets and any correlation with Bitcoin, I'll assume that what the question might be about. There's been some theories, and some pretty respected analysts have talked about potential correlation between equities and Bitcoin, whether one leads the other, or if one goes down, is there a rotation in and out, and can you kind of play one market against each other? We've never really agreed with that. There's been times when there's been a correlation between equities and coin. There's been a time where it's been inverse. Really, the challenge to us has been equities have been going up for so long that, I mean, really, if you take it back to 2008, you know, equities touched 6,000. You know, we're at 24,000 now. I mean, that's just been a steep ramp in and of itself. So anything that's gone up in that time, you could say correlated to equities for that period of time. And that just seemed a little hollow. I mean, a little thin, right? So we actually, and we do work in other asset classes, we work tirelessly to find correlations across markets. We cannot find anything that consistently over time to a level that can stand on any shred of integrity from a scientific, objective data math perspective. We can't find anything that correlates with Bitcoin or crypto. Whether that's good or bad or even true, maybe there is something, we just haven't found it yet. I'm not sure I know yet, but we've read a lot, and there's been a lot of folks who've talked about potential correlations, but we just haven't found any, But when crypto was going up, then folks talked about maybe they're leading each other higher. When crypto turned earlier this year, folks talked about now there's an inverse correlation. When one goes up, the other goes down. And I think those are two independent moves. Correlation doesn't always equal causality. So we don't see any correlation in each other. Yeah, and Zuckus is talking about equities that behave similar to Bitcoin on a lag. I definitely agree that that's happened from time to time, but we don't see it. What we talk about is a tradable opportunity. Is that a pattern that has stood the test of time? Not saying it doesn't. I just haven't seen it, and it's not something that personally I would trade. We've actually looked into the equity Bitcoin correlation pretty extensively, and just haven't gotten there. So maybe there's something there. Maybe you'll discover it and tell us about it. But just haven't seen it. Looking for any other questions, comments, insight. One more check of the market here. We're at 66.12. Volume stable. We feel pretty solid about where we are in terms of tradable opportunities. We feel like a long-term solid position. If you've been long, you might kind of hold through this consolidation pattern. If you're looking to enter right now, I'd keep watching Crypto World News, keep doing your research, and maybe you'll find some scalping opportunities. Maybe you'll find some opportunities, in the options market with the Nadex option. Maybe you'll just enter the exchange and find some good opportunities. So I certainly wish you luck. And whatever you decide. So again, my name's Jason. I appreciate everybody. I appreciate your engagement. Appreciate your support. Certainly wish you good luck trading. If I could be any use to you, please reach out on Twitter. Find me here on Crypto World News. I want to thank Elliot and just the entire team at Crypto World News. I mean, what they're doing for the community is awesome. And I personally, as a fan of crypto, someone who loves crypto and loves to trade crypto, am grateful to them. And grateful to each of you for supporting them. Let's continue to build this, continue to build the community, continue to support fantastic crypto programming. I'm a fan, I love it, and I'm grateful to be here and spend some time with each of you talking about it. So thank you to Nadex, Thank you for what they're doing for crypto. Gives you a chance to get some exposure to the price moves without owning Bitcoin if you're looking at a weekly or monthly option with capped risk through a Nadex spread. And again, thanks to Elliot and the team at Crypto World News. I'm signing off. Thanks to each of you for hanging out with me for a little bit. Sign up for a free newsletter if we could be of help to you. Other than that, good luck and happy trading.
Trading shouldn't keep you up at night. Cap your risk with Nadex and leave the sleepless nights to other traders. Nadex. Risk is capped. Open an account at Nadex today.